Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be doing my first ever book review, and we're going to start off with this book right here, Leo Tolstoy's A Confession. So yeah, let's jump straight into it because I've tried filming this 3 times and I'm just bad at doing this stuff, but this time is going to be the good one, and if you're watching this, it is the good one. So let's jump straight into it. It's called A Confession because Leo Tolstoy is confessing how, despite all of his fame and success as a writer, he secretly is very, very suicidal. And he talks about his whole life and how he became suicidal and how he eventually sees the light and is saved and comes out of it. And this I personally found to be a very profound and eye-opening book. And I think a lot of modern day people can relate to it immensely. I think there's a lot of modern day people who grew up very religious and then have since strayed from the faith, and maybe they still are strayed from the faith, or they've come back to it. There's just a lot of really awesome moral questions. Why should we live? Why should we get out of bed? Why shouldn't we end our lives? And it explores those really deep and profound questions. And I think Tolstoy comes to some pretty cool conclusions that I personally had never thought of. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. So the beginning of the book, Tolstoy basically just explains how he grew up as an Orthodox Christian, and at a very young age, around 15 or 16, he began to stray from the faith. He describes it as, stopping praying, fasting, going to church, things like that. And he began to read more like philosophical, other philosophies, and explore science and stuff like that. And he still like believed in something higher, but he wasn't living it out and truly believing this to be reality. So jumping ahead, he becomes famous. He's this amazing writer, War and Peace, those types of books, and he's not happy. He has all this success and this fame, but he's deeply suicidal, and he really believes that life is just this evil joke of an existence, and everything he's accomplished and all this amazing meaning he has, he's gonna die and it's gonna disappear. So he's wondering, like, what is this all for? Did I really live my life correctly? When he was young and he began straying from his religion, the main thing that was driving him was self-improvement. But now he reached such a point in his life where it is almost like there was nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to improve. He accomplished what he wanted to do. He had dreams and aspirations, and he did them. And now it's like, well, what is there? What is there left? And that can connect great with tons of celebrities, people who get like rich and famous on social media, and we think that they must have an amazing life because everyone knows who they are, and they can't possibly be lonely or miserable or addicted to drugs or whatever. And they really have these not the best and most enjoyable lives secretly. So Tolstoy talks about that whole thing, and he then creates this analogy for how he kind of views life and how he boxes people into how they believe life is, right? So he describes a well, and there's a branch in the well that a person, theoretically you, are hanging from. So you're hanging from this branch, and there are 2 mice chewing at this branch, a black mouse and a white mouse, black mouse, white mouse, and they signify night and day. And that's your life, right? And eventually the mice are going to break that branch, and you're going to fall to your death. At the bottom of the well, there's a dragon, which symbolizes death. So that's how he describes life. But there is some honey that is drizzling down that you can reach, and you can lick it if you want and taste it and enjoy that sweet honey. So this is what he uses to describe 4 types of people. The first is those that are ignorant to the fact that they're doomed, right? So these are people who just haven't come to terms with the fact that they're going to die and that life is this big, meaningless joke. The second group are people who are aware they're going to die, but they might as well enjoy some honey and hang on along the ride and just kind of enjoy it. And this is definitely the classification that most people fall under today. There are lots of people who do not believe in a higher power, who do not believe in something infinite, but they're not suicidal by any means. So they kind of just enjoy like pleasures of life, the fruit of life, so to speak, and they have dreams and aspirations that drive them. And Tolstoy acknowledged that this is the classification that most people fall under. The third group are those who are aware that life is this big, massive, evil joke, and they go through with killing themselves. And there are people who do come to this conclusion in real life. Nearly 2,000 people do end their lives every single day. It's an insane and immensely sad thing, but it's a true reality of human existence that people conclude that they're better off not living. And the fourth group are those who they're the same as the third group, except that they don't go through with actually killing themselves. So Tolstoy classifies himself in this group where he doesn't kill himself out of weakness and fear, essentially. So there's people who are aware that life is this big evil prank and that the best thing to do is to end your life, but they still don't because they're scared, essentially. They're weak. That's how Tolstoy describes it. And after this, Tolstoy talks about this, he begins to wonder, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my rational thought is incorrect. He doesn't really believe that, but he asks the question, maybe I'm wrong. He believes he's correct, but he starts to ask some more questions. And eventually he does decide that, maybe it's not weakness that's stopping me from killing myself. Maybe it's that I know that I'm wrong and that I know there's something else going on. And this is when we come to my favorite part of the book. And what I think is like the most profound part, that he basically talks about how, he believes the most rational thing to do is to end your life. But he actually realizes that by coming to that conclusion, he has entered a paradox where he is rejecting the very thing that allowed him to come to that conclusion in the first place. Right? So I'm going to read from the book specifically just to do it justice, because my explanation might not do it justice. But he says, "Were there no life, my reason would not exist. Therefore, reason is life's son. Life is all. Reason is its fruit, yet reason rejects life itself. I felt that there was something wrong here." And I agree, Tolstoy, there is something wrong there. Tolstoy believes the most rational thing to do is to end your life. But if reasoning is the fruit of life, life is the precondition for reasoning and rational thought, then ending that very thing that birthed your ability to do it is the most irrational thing, actually. It's not the most rational. So you end this paradox where the most rational conclusion is simultaneously the most irrational conclusion. It's kind of this cool thing, and I think it might help people who might be struggling with, like, even if you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, wondering why the hell you're here, this I think is one of the best trains of thought for the fact that you are here for something greater than just to die, and that's it. Because why would life even begin in the first place for one to just conclude that it's all for nothing, that you're better off just ending it? So I read it from Tolstoy. He did a better job explaining it than I did. But reasoning that reasoning collapses in on itself, essentially. The reasoning that you should end your life is extremely irrational, which is good. It's a good thing that we can come to that conclusion. I think most would agree. That's a good thing. So then Tolstoy begins to kind of explore people around him who have different beliefs and moral frameworks. And he then starts to look towards the common man, the common person. And, at this time, life wasn't exactly easy. In the mid-1800s, you were doing a lot of manual labor. It was a very laborious life, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. If you had a family, lots of your children likely didn't survive infancy, and there wasn't the best medication for things. It was a tough life. And so Tolstoy started wondering, why do all these people who have much, much, much more difficult lives than me continue to live? Whereas I, who have basically everything I've ever wanted, believe that I should actually kill myself. And it's really interesting. We always wonder, like, oh, like Robin Williams, like, how could he be suicidal? But, And like your average Joe who is waking up at 5 a.m. every day and picking up 50-pound boxes for 8 hours, why is he like content with life, right? It's those questions that make us really think. And Tolstoy then comes to the conclusion that it's faith. It's the belief in something infinite that allows these people to live this difficult, finite existence. And this is what starts to get Tolstoy down the path back to God. And he starts to explore the idea of God. And every single time he thinks about God, he finds that he has this kind of peace. He's no longer suicidal. Then suddenly, he'll start questioning himself again, and he'll fall back down a rabbit hole where he then becomes suicidal again. But whenever he does think about God, he finds this peace inside of him. And so he begins to explore this. And I'd like to read another passage, which is probably the most quoted passage from this book, and my second favorite part of the book, which is when he states the following. But then I turned my gaze upon myself, on what went on within me, and I remembered all those cessations of life and reanimations that recurred within me hundreds of times. I remembered that I only lived at those times when I believed in God. As it was before, so it was now. I need only be aware of God to live. I need only forget him or disbelieve him, and I died. What is this animation and dying? I do not live when I lose belief in the existence of God. I should long ago have killed myself had I not had a dim hope of finding him. I live, really live, only when I feel him and seek him. What more do you seek? Exclaimed a voice within me. This is he. He is that without which one cannot live. To know God and to live is one and the same thing. God is life. Live seeking God, and then you will not live without God. And more than ever before, all within me and around me lit up, and the light did not again abandon me, and I was saved from suicide. Now that's just powerful stuff right there, Tolstoy. Come on now. So boom, he's been saved. He no longer is suicidal. It's like, wow. And he starts to then question this because nothing about what he's thinking and saying is rational, right? He's rejecting rationality itself with this belief in this faith. It's totally separate from it. And it kind of makes him a little crazy, but he's no longer suicidal, which is good, And he's like wondering, how can something so irrational and so not possible be what's the solution to mankind enduring and continuing to live and overcome the struggles that they encounter? And that's honestly where the book kind of takes its conclusion route. But, he begins going to church again and praying and exploring other religions and their beliefs and whatnot. And he then starts to explore kind of, what he believes are the faults with religion. He talks about how, mankind is very flawed and how, if this religion claims truth and this religion claims truth, then it's either they're both wrong or they're both somewhat right, but they don't both have, the truth. It's either they're both completely wrong or they have snippets of the truth, but they themselves individually are not fully true. So he starts to become critical of just like religion and mankind, kind of how they might have corrupted what is actually the truth about the infinite. But he does come to the conclusion that a belief in something infinite is the solution to enduring the finite. And that's kind of where the book ends, and that's kind of where I think this review can end. I think I just like to leave it with that. But I found it just extremely powerful, and if you're not religious, you might not like or agree with some of the conclusions Tolstoy comes to because, like he even admits, they're not rational. They're not grounded in science or some sort of evidence-based thing that you can just research or, predict and figure out and retest over and over again. But you can't deny the fact that this train of thought saved one of the most famous writers of the time from suicide. And I think there's power in that. And that's where I like to end it. So, hope you guys enjoyed this book review. I know it was a little long, but I would like to do more of these. So let me know what you think. And I hope you have an awesome day.